Hi and welcome to my video. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. Not only am I filming somewhere different, normally I'd sit on the floor over there somewhere, but I felt that was a bit bland, it was quite cramped. I tried to sit there because the lighting was a little bit better than sat by the window, which is high up, so it makes me look like I've never slept. But I wanted to film somewhere more comfortable with a bit of a more interesting background, I guess. So here we are. But also, normally at the start of the month I would try to do a wrap up of the previous month, although I kind of missed out on February. Nope, I kind of missed out on January, but March didn't really go as planned. I was hoping to get back into filming regular videos with book reviews and different things, and like Power of 3 videos where I talk about games, books and films, but I had a really tough March, a lot of stuff to deal with in my personal life, so I wasn't able to read very much or film. I just didn't have the brain space to read, and definitely didn't want to be on camera. So I only read 2 books in March, and I'm currently reading 2 other books, which wouldn't make a very interesting video. It'd be a very short video as I talk about 2 books. I don't have much to say about them either, but I did watch 15 films. So I thought I would do a movie wrap up for March because that's far more interesting. I thought it would be fun just to go through all the films that I've watched this month. I have Letterboxd, I got it at the start of this year, and just to track of the movies I was watching, because you end up forgetting what you've watched and some really good things can kind of slip from your memory. So I wanted to use Letterboxd, where you can sort of, it's like Goodreads for movies, isn't it? So you can just track the films you've watched, your star ratings, your reviews and stuff. It's very cool, just like Goodreads, but not for books. And I found it really useful and interesting to see my ratings. I thought I would rank all the books I read, not books, I'm still in booktube mode, all the films I watched in March in order of worst to best, and I'll just go through them and talk about them. All the films I watched apart from one are like the horror thriller genre. I'll try and remember to say the genre of the film as I mention it, and I'll try to include some like a picture or clips or something where I can find footage, you know, without copyright or whatever, and with my minimal editing skills as well. So how I ranked them as well. So there's 15 movies. I'll start at number 15 and go to number 1. Number 1 being the best and 15 being the worst. Just because 15 is the worst movie I watched this month doesn't mean it's like the worst movie of all time. And how I've ranked them is sort of 3 things mainly: how likely I am to rewatch it, how much I enjoyed it generally, and how engaged I was, like how entertaining it was, whether I felt distracted and ended up sort of going onto my phone partway through, or whether it was boring, or whether I was like hooked and really sucked into the story. So let's go through. So number 15 was The Babysitter, Killer Queen, which is the second, it's a sequel to the first Babysitter film. This was a 1 star. I really didn't like this film at all. I got my laptop here with Letterboxd open just so I can see. Yeah, it's a horror comedy, so it's kind of cheesy and has a lot of, I guess, comedic horror. So it's quite gory, but it's not like serious, not like Hostel, where it's like hurts you to watch. It's yeah, it's a comedy horror. So this is obviously the sequel to The Babysitter, which I also watched in March, but I rated higher. So it's a bit weird to talk about this. But basically, this tried to be the first film again, so it was very repetitive and just so much worse. It wasn't as funny. The Babysitter and The Babysitter, Killer Queen, the second film, both have a lot of references in, and in the first film I got loads of them and they're really cool. Lots of references to like other horror films, whether it's like Friday the 13th or, you know, The Shining or whatever. It was funny and I got it and it was entertaining, but this one just wasn't. It was trying too hard. It kind of undid some of the magic of the first film. Essentially what it is this dude, young man, I guess he's like 16 or something, I don't know, who was the main character in the first film, is still suffering from the trauma of the first film, and he goes on away with some friends on a boat trip and everything goes wrong because they're a cult, basically. Sounds interesting. It's not. It was 1 star. I didn't like it. Number 14 on my list is The Invitation. This is a 1 star as well. It's only slightly higher than Babysitter, Killer Queen. This is a thriller, and it is about a man who goes with his new partner to a dinner party that's been hosted by his ex-wife and her new partner, and all of their sort of old friends from college or university, whatever you call it. And there's a lot of trauma in their relationship. It seems like they shared a son that died, so it's very tense. So in my head, I'm like, don't go then, because if you have a lot of trauma in your past relationship and not a happy ending, why are you gonna go to this dinner party just because your friends are there? Just meet up with them separately and don't take your new partner, goddamn. Anyway, so they go and it unravels. But this sounds like an interesting concept. Things are gonna go wrong, you know it's gonna go wrong, and you know it's gonna be tense. But this film was just undeniably boring. Like, oh my god, I was watching it and for the first like hour, I was like, I've been watching this for like an hour and nothing's happened and it's so boring. It's very predictable. The way the people act is really not normal. Like it's not. I didn't feel immersed in the characters because they were doing stuff that just felt really weird. Like at one point, the hostess, who's the ex-wife of the main dude, slaps one of the friends across the face while he's in the room because she gets like irritated with him, and no one says anything. Everyone's like, "Oh, God, what's up with her?" No one calls her out on it. If I was at a dinner party and my ex-wife slapped our shared friend, I wouldn't just be like, she must just be in a bad mood. I'd be like, what are you doing? You were like, you can't do that. You just assaulted someone. That's not okay. They all just take it in their stride. And it was just really boring. And by the time the twist happened, which wasn't a twist because you knew it was coming, but not in like a good way, not in like a tense way, I was just super done with the film. I found it really boring. I didn't understand why people highly rated it. Maybe I just didn't get it. I don't know. Number 13 for me, which is a 1.5 star, is Zombievers, which is a weird one. This came out in 2014. This was how do you even describe Zombievers? There are Beavers and there are zombies, and there's a group of sexy young people that go out and to some remote place and they start to get attacked by the zombies. This film is everything you could expect from it. You know, it's kind of in the category of Sharknado and, you know, or the Sharktopus or whatever. Those sort of films where you know it's going to be trash, but it's weirdly enthralling to watch. There's all the things I hate in films, like a lot of sexism, misogyny, you know, the women obviously always scantily clad and have their boobies out, and the men are like douches. And it's just like, you know, that sort of that sort of type of film, very sort of old school, early 2000s kind of horror film, but it was actually quite funny. And the reason why I gave it 1.5 stars is because it's supposed to be stupid, it's meant to be stupid, but it wasn't really for me, so I wouldn't rate it higher, but it made me chuckle. It kept making me chuckle, and I was like, you're actually making me laugh, so I have to give this a higher rating than the last two films because they were not very good at all. Obviously, the order I'm ranking them isn't the order that I watched them in, but like if this film that's designed to be bad makes me laugh, then it's definitely better than a film that's supposed to be good but it's incredibly boring. So that was Zombievers. Number 12 is The Hole in the Ground, that I gave 2 stars to. So I feel a bit mixed about my rating on this, actually. The more I think about it, the more I think it should be a higher rating. I think it's a horror. At the time when I watched it, I wasn't super into it. This is about a woman. It's an Irish setting, all the actors are Irish. A woman who moves to a new home with her son, and it seems like she's trying to escape a domestic violence situation. She moves with her son, and then something happens that makes her believe that her son isn't her son anymore. And a lot of the lore in this film is based on sort of changelings, that sort of folklore stuff. And changelings, oh, there's a hair in my mouth. Changelings were basically in sort of folklore, a really vague, very sort of the gist of the story is that children will be replaced with changelings which look like them, like doppelgangers, to take over. And I think what made me not feel super like into this film was that I wanted a little bit more on her, and a little bit more on her relationship to her son, because we got a very small glimpse of their like quite positive relationship, My throat just made like a weird like whoa noise. Got a very small glimpse of her relationship with her son, and then almost immediately she's like, no, that's not my son, something's happened to him, he's not my son. And I think as a parent, surely you'd be like more concerned about why are they acting different, what's going on. You wouldn't just jump to nope, they've been replaced. Like surely there's a few more steps in between. I don't know. But I actually watched a few other review videos on it because I was thinking I must be missing something, and the review videos explained a little bit more of sort of like stuff going on in the background that I didn't notice, which did make me think actually it's probably more clever than it is. It's a very deliberately ambiguous film, which I like about it, but it just didn't grasp me, so it's 2 stars. I would like to rewatch it though, and maybe I would get a little bit more from it then. So number 11 was Await Further Instructions. This was a 2.5 star for me. This is a very British sort of suspenseful sci-fi horror sort of mystery film. That's what the genre tags are for it on Letterboxd, sci-fi horror, where a young man and his girlfriend go to his family home on Christmas Eve. He's very estranged from his family, hasn't seen them in years, but she really wants to meet them, so they think they're going to go for Christmas and, you know, get to know them. She is of Indian heritage, and her family, his family, are not very welcoming, to say the least, and things go wrong when they wake up on Christmas morning, and all the doors and windows are blocked by this like thick plasticky sheet stuff that you can't cut through. The boyfriend tries to like cut through with an axe at one point, and then the TV starts giving them instructions. Like the first sort of instruction is to like, you know, not go outside. They can't go outside, or like because you can't get out anyway, or to open all the windows or something. Then it's like clean yourself with bleach, and it kind of escalates from there. And it was very very entertaining. It was very good. It's quite a low budget, I guess, indie-ish film. I don't know the definition for indie films, but it felt like that, and it was really really entertaining. It's 2.5 stars. It's not the best thing I've ever watched, but it's not the worst thing. Would I watch it again? Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. The next film I watched, not the next film I watched, next on my list, which is number 10, is The Babysitter. So this is the first film of the Babysitter duology, I guess, which I also gave 2.5 stars to. And this one was so much better than its sequel and its predecessor, so much better. It's a comedy horror again about a boy who's 14 maybe, and his babysitter, he's like a very kind of lonely nerdy boy, gets bullied at school, has like some phobias, he's a bit anxious and isolated, and she is like a super hot, like really cool, she's really nerdy, gets him. She's much older than him, she's like 18 or well, maybe 20, I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but she's an adult essentially, and they get on really well, and she's babysitting him while his parents go away for the weekend, and she's been babysitting him for years, so they know each other really well. And then one night, the night that she's babysitting him, rather than go to sleep when he's supposed to, he decides to stay up and see what she gets up to when he's asleep, and it falls apart from there. And this film is chock full of references to old horror films, to very famous horror films. There's one point where one of the actors starts making the music sound from Friday the 13th, and it's really good. It's really funny, and I found it really entertaining. It's not the best film I've ever watched. Will I rewatch it? Maybe, if I can't be bothered to find something else. It's not the best film ever. That's why it's only 2.5 stars. But it was kind of funny, so I liked that. I like the references. I like it when you get references in films and you feel clever. So that was number 10 on my list. Number 9 is Happy Death Day to You. So that's a 2.5 stars as well. So the last 3, even though I ranked them like 11, 10 and 9, they're kind of all very similar. I would happily watch any of them, but I guess Happy Death Day to You slightly peaks the 3 because I really enjoyed the first film. I think the actress, can't remember her name now, is great. So it's the sequel to Happy Death Day, where a woman has to like live through the same day over and over again, and she keeps getting murdered basically. And the sequel kind of plays on the sort of dimension paradox side of it, the sci-fi side of it more. It's definitely not as good as the first film, but it's still entertaining. It gets a bit more sloppy and romantic in this one, which is fine. and it's just entertaining and funny. But I think what makes this film so good is the main actress, whose name I'm going to find out now. Yeah, Jessica Roth is her name. Yeah, so she just does such a brilliant job, and I think she carries the film basically. um, so yeah, that was really entertaining. Number 8 is Circle. Was it The Circle? I think it's just Circle. Let's see. Yeah, it's just Circle. And this was I just sort of, I was browsing through Netflix and I just clicked on it because I was just like, this sounds weird. What's this about? This is a sci-fi thriller kind of film where all these people wake up in a room. They're stood on a little circle, but they're also stood in a circle. And the last thing they remember is running away from aliens, basically. And they've woken up in this room, and they don't know what the hell is happening. And basically, they have to vote with their hands, because something's happened to their hands, where they have to vote on who's gonna die, and everything sort of descends into chaos where they're trying to like debate who deserves to live and blah 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 blah. And it's quite entertaining. Some bits are a bit like eye rolly, so I gave it 3 stars. But the reason why it's 3 stars rather than 2 stars is because I did not anticipate the ending, and I'm not going to give anything away. This is a non-spoiler, obviously, video. But yeah, I was like, damn, I didn't expect that. So fair enough. It was entertaining. I would rewatch it. So that was a 3 stars for me. Number 7, which is my first foreign film on this list, is As the Gods Will. It's a Japanese horror. Is it horror? It's based on a manga. It's very weird. I don't even know how to explain it. It starts off with our main protag, and he's in school and they're in the middle of a death game, and basically it's about like surviving death games, kind of like, I guess, battle royale, Hunger Games, but not in that situation. It's not like an arena. They're in school and they're in their like classroom to begin with, and it just is the weirdest film. At the beginning, this is not a spoiler because this happens at the very beginning, when the students die, their heads explode into marbles, red marbles, and it was just so weird. I was completely captivated by this film. I had no idea where it was going to go, and it ends on a cliffhanger because I think they were anticipating a second film, but I'm not sure it's ever going to come. It made me really want to read the manga just because I want to know what was happening. It was so weird, and it was very entertaining. If you're okay with watching subbed films, because subbed over dubbed every time, then I recommend it, definitely. And number 6 is Escape Room. This was actually the first film that I watched in March, and it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. It's a film about an escape room, or escape rooms, where all these people get this mysterious box where they solve it and they get invited to participate in an escape room where they have the chance to win $10,000. It's dollars, yeah. 10 grand, basically. It's not what they think it is, not as simple as it seems, and it's entertaining. I hope there's a sequel because I would watch it. I enjoyed it very much. So it was 3 stars. I recommend you watch it. So the next film on my list is as number 5, so we're in the top 5 now of the month. Woof. And number 5 is Level 16. This was another 3-star film for me, and it's like an indie film. It's very like low budget, and it's a sci-fi thriller, but it's very, very good. It's very entertaining, and it's about these girls, these women that live in this building that's very, very clinical and sterile, and essentially you don't know why they're there, you don't know what is on the outside, but they have to do like etiquette classes like, is the cook and clean, they have to be very perfect, they have to be clean, because if you're unclean then you might not get adopted. So basically they're hoping that as they get older, by the end of it, they'll be chosen for adoption. But actually it's much more sinister than that, what's going on. So they're in this very clinical environment. This is where they live, it's where they grow up, that's all they know. They don't know anything else. And you're thinking, why? And you get most of the answers, but you don't get like all the answers of how this has happened. But it's really, really good actually. Very entertaining. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's something that I highly recommend you watch actually. Something a bit different. I just found it on Netflix as well. Just stumbled across it and gave it a watch, and it was decent. So number 4 is Spree. I gave Spree a 3.5 stars. It has the dude from Stranger Things, whose name I can't remember, in it. He's the main character, and it is wild. Basically, this is about a man who becomes like an Uber driver, but it's not called Uber. But he is desperate to have like social media fame. He wants to be a really famous YouTuber or streamer or whatever. He wants to be a famous influencer, but he's all surface. He has no substance. He's done so many different things to try and get views and stuff, but he's still very unpopular, still a very small channel, and he's very desperate and needy. And he has like an Uber-esque job, but he sets cameras up in it, and he's basically constantly streaming his encounters with passengers, and then it starts to just go to shit when he starts not being a good person, basically, and it just unravels. It completely unravels, and it shows very much the toxicity of social media and online presences and being an influencer and being like a streamer or YouTuber. Not to criticize those people, but people that are very famous, but just criticize the sort of vapidity of some people, and of the attitude people have about needing likes and validation to feel human or to feel like they have purpose. It was very, very entertaining, and a bit wild, so that was a 3.5 stars for me. So next, number 3. This is the only film that wasn't like a horror thriller. I guess this is kind of thriller. It's not really. It's a murder mystery, and it's Knives Out, which was a 4-star. And yeah, Knives Out is very popular, very famous. Everyone knows it's very good. It's very interesting murder mystery. It's a whodunit film. It has Daniel Craig in it, which I always find it weird when Daniel Craig does accents that aren't his own British one, because it's just weird to me, a bit uncanny. I don't know. But it was entertaining. It was really good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Number 2 was The Call, which is a Korean thriller. I absolutely adore Korean films, South Korean films. Like Train to Busan, for example, is the best zombie film I've ever seen. One of the best films I've ever seen. Like, South Korea know how to make horrors and thrillers. They just know what they're doing. So The Call, I gave this a 3.5, so which is weird because it's higher up than Knives Out, which was a 4-star. But I guess you kind of have to give Knives Out a 4-star because of its like cinematography and story and twists and acting, and yeah, you can't not rate it highly. Whereas this is a 3.5 stars because there's obviously some flaws in it, but I prefer it to Knives Out, and I feel like I'd more likely watch it than Knives Out again. But I can't give it like a high rating because it's not perfect by any means, but it's super entertaining. So The Call is about a woman who goes back to her old family home because her mother is really sick in hospital with cancer and is dying. But she has there's a lot of tension in her relationship with her mum. She goes to family home. She's lost her phone on the train or whatever, on the transport she used to get there. So she has to use the house phone, the landline. Remember landlines? She has to use one of those. And it's there's some sort of like, I guess it's like kind of paranormal sci-fi-ish, because she gets a call from someone and builds a relationship with someone who is actually from the past, living in the house in the same moments, but from the past. And it's hard to explain, but it's very, very well done. And yeah, things take a sinister turn as she can influence the past by telling the person on the phone things that from the future. Like, she could say, this has happened, this happens because of this, so the past person can find out and make changes to what's happening now, and it affects like the whole timeline. Like, basically this whole film is like, don't mess with the timeline, leave things as they are, you can only make it worse. And it's just, yeah, really, really entertaining, a really great Korean thriller. Highly recommend. So, number 1, the best film I watched in March, by my personal opinion, is #Alive. It was another South Korean film. It's a zombie horror thriller drama, but unlike Train to Busan, it's got much less of a focus on zombies, and much more of a focus on the individual or main protagonist that we're following through the apocalypse, I guess. I gave this 4 stars. It is really good. It's very I felt very enamoured with the protagonist and his struggle as the zombie virus, whatever it is, breaks out, and he's trying to survive in his tiny apartment because he lives in one of those like massive apartment blocks, you know, in Korea, where you live in like your unit. And that's what he has. He hasn't got very much food. You know, he's very lonely. He's on his own because his family went out to go shopping on the morning of the apocalypse, and then it's all fell apart, and he hasn't seen them. And it was much more focused on him and his struggle and his relationships, and it was very, very, very good. I was surprised it hasn't got a higher like hype because the ratings are quite low on Letterboxd, but I found this film great. I was so enamoured. I cared so much about the characters. I would watch it again. The zombies, even though they're not the focus, are still terrifying. I don't know what it is about South Korean zombies. They are terrifying. It's just, yeah, I was just like super, yeah, enamored with it. 4 stars, not perfect, not good as Train to Busan, but still really, really good, really entertaining film, which I highly recommend you watch. So that was my #1 film of the month. Those are all my films. The worst was Babysitter Killer Queen. Don't recommend, don't bother. Watch the first one, don't watch the second one. And #1, #alive. Very, very good. Very good film. If you're wondering how I do the star rating, it's basically like 5 for me is like a perfect film, like a film that I just love and that I just would watch again and again. That I would class as probably a favourite, I guess. And like 4 stars, it's a very, very good film. It's not like my perfect film, it's not a favourite for me, but it's still exceptionally good. Very highly rating. Highly rated. 3 stars is a good film, really entertaining, you know, but not perfect by any means, like something that I really enjoyed. But it's, you know, it's not the best film in the world. I definitely would rewatch it, but it's, you know, it's a 3 star. It's above middle of the road, isn't it? 2 star is like, it's okay. Yeah, not too bad. Had some good bits, but it's alright. You know, maybe we watch it, maybe we won't, I don't know. And 1 star is obviously like, kind of not very good. I don't really want to rewatch this kind of trash film. Obviously 1/2 star would be even worse than that, because Letterboxd and like Goodreads lets you do 1/2 stars, which is just like a game changer. Goodreads needs to do this, man. 1/2 stars, we need them. But yeah, so those are all the films I watched in March, and hopefully I will actually read some books in April. But you know, this is actually kind of fun. I might do this every month if I watch a decent amount of films. It was a lot of fun. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have some inspiration for films to watch. These are just my opinions. If you like really enjoy any of the films that I said lower down on my list, let me know. I want to know why you like them, because if I've got something wrong, I'd happily rewatch a film to see it from a different perspective. But yeah, happy watching, and I'll see you around.